What are the top 2 dirtiest tricks in divorce? Tune in to hear about these from attorney Joseph Marra.
Generally, especially, and this could apply to both, but especially to the breadwinning spouse, my advice would be do not move out. Go downstairs, go to the basement, go to the living room, but do not move out. Because you're right, once you move out, they can immediately file for this relief. They could try to file for it anyway if you haven't moved out, if they could prove you're denying support, but it's kind of hard if you're in there paying the bills and all of that. But this is another thing, and I don't want to take away from victims of domestic abuse because that happens and it's horrible. But you also have to understand there's another side to that, because what I'll tell a client, and this is just natural advice, look, if you have been physically violated, emotionally violated, sexually violated, and or you're in fear of your safety, if that your other spouse is constantly yelling at you, screaming at you, not only that, but more importantly, threatening you with physical violence, you have an absolute right to either go to the police and have them arrested or to go to family court, once again, family court, and seek an order, right? And what's called an order of protection. And what some people don't realize is you can get this order of protection against your spouse, and it's a temporary order of protection because the court hasn't heard the issues. But the court, in the interest of protecting people from violence, will immediately order the accused out of the house until there's a hearing. So literally, and this has happened, someone's home, they're putzing around the kitchen, doorbell rings, it's the cops. Police officer says, Mr. Jones, I have an order of protection, temporary order of protection. Here it is, I'm serving it upon you. You must now immediately vacate the premises. You can gather your things if you allow us in to assist you or watch you while you're gathering your things. You gather as much as you can carry and you got to get out. And that happens. And I've seen spouses, both men and women, use that as a tool, either by lying outright or exaggerating. And you think about it from a court's perspective, they want to make sure people are protected. They want to make sure people are safe. So they're going to err on the side of granting this temporary order. So one thing I advise the breadwinners to do is, number one, they're permitted to record, in New York State, you're permitted to record conversations with people as long as you're a party to that conversation. The other person doesn't have to know about it. So I advise them, use your phone. You could tell the other spouse or not tell them. Use your phone, use some type of device to record your interactions with the other spouse so you could prove that you didn't do this, okay? Or if the other person's threatening you, to record the threats. But that is a fine line. Some people try to set up these other equipment that goes on when they're not there, like the nanny cam type of things. And that can be problematic if you're recording the other party and you're not there, all right? In a marriage, that is problematic. Be careful doing that. But clearly, if you're there and you're a party to the conversation and you want to record your interaction with your other spouse, that's a good thing to do to prevent this type of abuse that does happen, right? Because then what happens is the spouse is thrown out and then the other party goes right to court and files, okay? And, here's the type of thing too, how much these stay away, because there's different, literally you can have an order of protection but still be allowed to reside in the same house. That has happened too. But if you have what's called a total stay away from the spouse. One spouse drove by to drop a support check off in the mailbox. The other spouse saw him and filed a petition for violating the order because he wasn't supposed to go anywhere near the house. That's how strictly these orders are enforced. So it's a very, like I said, someone who wants to be maniacal and manipulative and take advantage, they can easily do it. So I tell the spouse, don't move out and protect yourself. Don't engage in any conversation. Try to do it all via email or text. If you have to interact with the person, do it by recording the conversations. So that would be my advice to anyone. Don't move out until you have a deal. but protect yourself while you're living there. You have the issue of property, right? House is a marital asset. So that gets thrown in the pot and has to get divided. Once again, it could be 50-50, it could be some other, other thing, but I'm assuming that the house was bought during the marriage. And by the way, it doesn't matter if it was bought during the marriage, it doesn't matter whose name it's in. As long as it was purchased during the marriage, it's marital property. So it's going to get divided. That is a separate issue from who's entitled to reside there. So once you vacate, you've basically given up your right to reside there, and the other party is entitled to reside there until the issue of the property division of the house is decided. So two very, very different issues. One, who's entitled to the house from a property division point of view, and two, who's entitled to live there. If you split, well, the other side is entitled to live there, and it's going to be kind of hard to get them out, especially if there's minor children. A typical procedure that will happen with minor children is the custodial parent, the one taking care of the child primarily or children, will be permitted to reside in the house with the children until the children reach a certain age. Could be the end of high school, could be the end of college, right? But generally that's kind of a usual procedure. Obviously there are factors that somebody can't afford it, whatever. But I'm just talking about in general. That is an option the courts will look to keep the children in the house they grew up in until they go on their own. So to summarize, who gets the house property right by vacating? Do you give up your property rights? Absolutely not. But by vacating, do you give your right up to live there? Especially when there are kids? Probably do. This area I have quite a bit of experience and background. I mean, unlike many attorneys, I have an undergraduate degree in accounting, and I worked for two of the bigger accounting firms at some point in time, both as a lawyer and before I became a lawyer. So I can kind of analyze the financial position. And one thing that's good to do, if you can, is don't look at the income. Look at where the money's going. Try to look at the expenses, right? Because just because someone's getting cash doesn't mean they're necessarily spending it as cash. So they might run up their credit card bills. They might be putting money in their checking account. Right? But so you could tell by looking at their lifestyle also, because you're right. Some people are very good. They take the cash and they spend the cash. They never run it through the bank account. But, if they're living a lavish lifestyle, for example, they bought a big house and have a big mortgage, and the money they earn, it's going in to pay the mortgage and the taxes. But now, okay, well, how are they buying their groceries? How are they doing their entertainment? How are they going on vacation? None of that's being run through the checking account. So obviously it's being done another way with cash. So there are ways of tracking this, okay? And quite frankly, most people are not disciplined enough to make the cash, keep the cash, don't spend the cash. They're not. Some people are. They make the cash, keep the cash, bury it under a mattress, put it in a safe deposit box, whatever. Give it to a friend. Most people don't do that, right? They live off of it to some degree or another. So usually you could trace it down. You check. What I do is I ask for bank statements. I ask for credit card statements, mortgage statements, leases, all of these things to try and piece together a financial situation. I mean, when you examine a tax return, it's very interesting. It has so much information that people don't really know how to look at. I mean, you look at the schedules, Schedule B, let's say in particular, which is interest and dividends. And interesting. The front page, you look at, it's not taxable, but tax exempt income. Let's say someone took their cash and bought tax exempt bonds. Well, if the bonds are paying interest, that's going to show up somewhere. Okay, it's going to show up. It may not be taxable, but it's going to show up. If they're really smart and they're taking the cash and throwing it in tax exempts that aren't paying anything, well, then it's going to be hard to track it down. But believe me, people generally don't go to those levels. Some people do, but most don't. They're making cash and they're keeping cash. They're living according to the lifestyle the cash is giving them. And there's ways of tracking that down.
Thank you so much, Joe, for that important information. And thank you, audience, for watching. If you yourself or someone you know may have questions on this topic, please don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call the law offices of Joseph Marra. They are professional, friendly, and really great at looking at the pros and cons of your situation, coming up with a fantastic strategy, and giving you some options. We look forward to hearing from you soon.